Hello.
So what is going on, guys? It's Triple G here, back with another Borderlands 3 video, and today we are going to be tackling the big question: is why doesn't Borderlands 3 have any raid bosses, and why now is the actual best time for Borderlands 3 to release raid bosses? Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel or join us over on Twitch. We stream 5 times a week, and otherwise, let's get straight into this video. We have seen 4 DLCs, some seasonal events, and a couple of takedowns, and yet we still don't have that elusive raid boss. Now, if you're sat here and you didn't play Borderlands 2 and are wondering why we're talking about raid bosses were inclusive in Borderlands 2 predominantly, and they were pinnacle content where you would go in and you would fight some of the toughest bosses in the game. You would fight them over and over again, and they could drop these legendary class mods and items that were just absolute game changers. In Borderlands 3, they adopted a slightly different approach in year 1, where they have given us takedowns. We had the Malawan Takedown, which was a 10 to 15 minute kind of strike where you would go in and fight Wotan at the end. Now, that was incredibly fun and brilliant, and one that the community absolutely loved. The second one was the Guardian Takedown. Now, the Guardian Takedown was slightly less well received. It involved players having to do jumping puzzles and kind of mechanics for the first time in Borderlands. And whilst some of it was well received, and there's no doubt that level design was absolutely brilliant, unfortunately it left a lot to be desired, with the lack of checkpoints going through the actual thing itself, and in addition to that, the loot being really lackluster. So we find ourselves now just going past year 1, and we have the release of Arms Race. Arms Race is incredibly fun for what it is. It is a stripped back version of Borderlands 3 with no action skills, no Guardian ranks, no nothing, and you just go in and rely on your gunplay. Where the Guardian Takedown struggled with loot, Arms Race doesn't. The loot in Arms Race is extremely powerful and highly sought after. That brings us up to date, and now we are waiting for the rest of Season 2 to be confirmed so we know what's in store for 2021. Now, as with any game, you will lose players over time. However, the Borderlands community, particularly with Borderlands 2, stayed absolutely strong. One of the cornerstones of the fact that it stayed that strong was actual raid bosses. Now, if Gearbox are planning to release raid bosses, I think now is the absolute perfect time. If they are planning to release them this year and leave it to the end of 2021, I fear that most of that player base that was around for Borderlands 2 and is still around for Borderlands 3 will have given up hope by the end of the year, and a raid boss at the end of 2021 won't be enough. However, if they were to release the raid boss as the next DLC, I think this would trigger a huge uplift in the player base, bring those numbers back for Borderlands players that didn't quite love Borderlands 3 as they loved Borderlands 2. And in addition to that, they would also then, those players would probably stick around for the subsequent DLCs that are due to release in 2021. God knows everybody wants to know what's behind that Ascension Bluff door, and it's one of the most talked about things when you look on Reddit or any of the social media platforms. It's very rare that you will watch a Twitch stream where someone doesn't mention raid bosses or the fact that they would like to see raid bosses come to Borderlands 3. It is a top tier, top wanted list, most wanted, whatever you want to call it. It is the one thing that Borderlands 3 lacks over Borderlands 2. There are always plenty of comparisons between Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3, and I think the missing piece in that jigsaw puzzle is raid bosses. You can argue about the loot distribution, the UI, everything like that, but if Borderlands 3 had everything it had today plus raid bosses, it would pretty much be the perfect game. Raid bosses present a challenge like no other. They require absolute OP builds or specific builds for defeating raid bosses, or team cohesiveness, which is something I still feel is lacking in Borderlands 3. Let me know in the comment section below if you do feel like this is the perfect time for raid bosses, or whether or not you agree and you think raid bosses should come, or whether or not you don't agree and you think that the takedowns are enough for you as a player. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel or join us over on Twitch. We stream 5 times a week, and otherwise, I'll catch you on the flip.